The Paisios of Mount Earth, the Spiritual Counsels, Volume 4, Family Life, Part 2, Chapter 3. The parents' responsibilities for raising their children. Parents should entrust their children to God. God gave the first created humans, Adam and Eve, the great blessing to become his co-creators. From then on, the parents, the grandparents, and so forth are also God's co-creators because they create the body of the child. In a way, God is obligated to care for the children. When a child is baptized, God sends an angel for the child's protection. So then the child is protected by God, by the guardian angel, and by the parents. The guardian angel is always by the child, helping. The more a child grows and matures, the more the parents are relieved of their duties and responsibilities. Should the parents die, God, both from on high and from close by, and also the guardian angel from close by, continue always to protect the child. Parents have to help their children spiritually when they are little, because then even their faults are little and they can be easily corrected. It's like a fresh potato. If you scratch it a little, it's peeled. If, however, it gets older and staler, you'll need a sharp knife to clean it. And if it has some dark spots, you'll need to dig deeper. If the children are filled with Christ from an early age, they will always remain close to him. And even if they should stray a little when they grow up, either because of a phase of rebellion they're going through or because of bad influences, they are sure to return to their senses. This is because the fear of God and the devotion that watered their hearts when they were young cannot be ever eradicated. Later, during adolescence, until they have gotten their children educated and settled, the struggle of the parents will become greater. Parents should do all they can to help them at this age and leave all that is beyond their power in the hands of Almighty God. When parents entrust their children to God, then God is obligated to help on matters which are not humanly possible. If, for example, the children are disobedient, the parents should entrust them to God and not try to pressure them in any way. The mother should say in prayer, "My Lord, my children won't listen to me. I can't do anything to help them. Please take care of them." The other day at the vigil, I was impressed by a mother I knew from some time ago. She came to greet me. I saw that she had with her only the older children. "Where are the little ones?" I asked. "At home, Yoronda. We wanted to be here for the vigil, and my husband and I spoke about it, saying that God will provide a guardian angel for them. After all, we are going to a vigil, not for a night out." Nowadays, one rarely meets such confidence in God because now, just as the children's confidence in their parents has diminished, so has the parents' confidence in God. Many parents have often been heard to say, "Why should our children take up the wrong way of life? We go to church." But they do not offer the screwdriver to Christ to tighten up some of the screws in their children. They want to do everything by themselves. And even though there is God who protects the children and the guardian angel, who himself stands constantly by to protect them as well, the parents agonize over them until they become sick themselves. And although they are faithful people, they act as if there is no God, as if there is no guardian angel, in which case they actually impede divine intervention. Instead, they must become humble and ask for God's help, and the good God will protect the children. The example of the parents. Yoronda, when their child disobeys and rebels, how should the parents react? How should the parents act? For a child to be disobedient and to behave badly, something's wrong. It could be that he witnesses unpleasant scenes or hears quarrels, either in or out of the house. In any case, in spiritual matters, children are helped chiefly by the example we set, not by force. In fact, the mother can help the most through her example, with her obedience to and respect for her husband. If she happens to have a difference of opinion with him on a particular subject, she should never express it in front of the children and give the devil rights to exploit the situation. She should never diminish the children's impression of their father. Even if he is wrong, she should excuse him. If, for example, he behaves badly, she can say to the children, "Your father is tired. He had to work very hard to finish something urgent. He's working hard for you." A lot of parents fight in front of the children and set a bad example. The poor children are confused and saddened. Then the parents, in order to comfort them, fulfill all their demands. The father cajoles the child, saying, "Oh, my precious child, what would you like me to buy for you?" Then the mother cajoles the child as well. And in the end, the children grow up with antics, feigning things so that if the parents cannot give them whatever they ask for, they threaten to kill themselves. I don't know how much the parents' good example helps the children. Just today, 2 little girls came. One was about 3 and the other about 4 years old, with their devout parents. I enjoyed them so much. They were like little angels. They sat down and covered their knees with their little dresses. They were so reserved, so respectful, and all this stemmed from the behavior of the parents. When children see their parents have love and respect for one another, behaving with prudence, praying, and so on, then these positive images are imprinted on their soul. This is why I say that the best inheritance the parents can bestow upon their children is their own spiritual devotion. Oh, I wish you could have seen this little girl in Australia, footnote, in 1979, end footnote. What wonderful nobility of character she had. We were in Canberra. I had met with the last of the people who had come to see us, and soon we would be leaving. Just then a car pulled up and a couple got out with their little girl. "Geronda, we made it in time," they said. "Yes," I replied, "we are leaving soon." So the husband said, "Geronda, it's all right if I don't see you, but please do see my wife. She is sensitive and needs to talk to you, and find some consolation." I walked aside with the mother to hear what she wanted to tell me. The little girl ran behind her mother. I turned and said to the little girl, "Stay here, and Mummy will be right back." But then she asked me, "Do you have a mummy?" "No, I don't," I told her. And then I saw her little eyes swell with tears. "Do you want me to give you my mummy?" she asked me. So then I asked her, "Do you have a grandfather?" "No," she said. "Do you want to have a grandfather?" "Yes, we do," she told me. "Do you want to stay in our house or do you want us to come to your house?" "Whatever you want," she assured me. What nobility, a little child ready to offer her mother to me. You could see that she had imitated her parents. The father had a very noble and generous spirit. I embraced him, kissed him, and congratulated him. I gave him many blessings too. Such people move even the most hard-hearted person. You can imagine how much more they moved God. The suffering of children caused by parents. Yeronda, a mother asked us what to do with her daughter who swears at the panagia. She has to find the source of the evil. Sometimes in such cases it is actually the parents who are at fault. When they do not behave appropriately, they do not help the children who in turn speak with impudence. Then they become susceptible to demonic influence and react badly. In other circumstances, again, the parents imagine that they can raise good children properly by force. Their egoism enters into the picture and they speak to them with exasperation, whereas they should always treat their children with kindness. Just today, I got really angry with a woman. She has a child that she beats mercilessly. The poor thing is always shaking from fear and doesn't speak. His nerves are shattered. He has demons, they tell her, so she leaves the child without food. I don't feed him in order to get rid of the demons, she told me. Are you in your right mind? I asked her. Give the child something to eat and try to get rid of the demons inside you. You're the cause of the child's problems. The child does not have any demons. He's just scared of you because you beat him. Do you take the child to church for Holy Communion on a regular basis? No, she told me. Try communicating with her. Yeronda, do people say that a child has a demon because that child sometimes swears? Of course the child swears. When the mother is so forceful, she practically drowns the child. Even the child isn't aware afterwards of what he's done. It's a shame to have this child treated this way. It is the mother who is possessed, not the child. In any case, we shall see strange things on the day of judgment. Back in the days of idolatry, mothers burned their children before the idol of Molech so as to honor this pagan god. What sacrifices they would make if they knew the real God. Those women will be judged leniently on the day of judgment because they were misled. But the present-day mothers, with the indifference they have for their children, what leniency can they possibly expect? God will say to them, you knew the real God. You were baptized. You have heard so much. You have learned so much. God himself was crucified to save you, and what did you do? You couldn't be bothered to take your children to church to receive Holy Communion. Those women in the Old Testament times believed that Moloch was the true God and even offered their children as a sacrifice. You, what have you done? Children pay for the mistakes their parents make. Some parents destroy their children, but God is not unjust. He has great and special love for those children who have been wronged in this world either by their parents or by others. When parents are the reason why children take the wrong path in life, God will not abandon them, for they are entitled to divine help. God will provide so that the children are helped. For example, we see some young persons, even older ones, suddenly turn their lives around. I remember a certain case in point. There was a family with 2 children, a boy and a girl. The father, the mother, and the daughter were atheists. The son, at first, got involved with Marxism. He wasn't comforted there, so he tried Hinduism, but he wasn't comforted there either and came to the Holy Mountain. He came often to the Llfe and also went to other Kelia. Throughout this time, his parents kept saying, my Christ, my Panagia, protect our child. After staying at Mount Athos for some time and having recovered a bit and become spiritually strong, he returned home, for he was not suited to the monastic life, and helped both his parents spiritually. Now I see his father as the first to come to vigils. He reads the proemial psalm, the preamble psalm, footnote Psalm 103, which is read at the beginning of Vespers, end footnote. In church and at home, he reads the Vespers, the Apodipno, Compline service, and the Paraklesis, supplication to the Mother of God. Now this is God's providence at work. The devil tried to do harm, but God turned things around and brought everybody in line. What happened to the girl Yeronda? She too is coming around gradually. God provides opportunities. Yeronda, some parents who embarked on living a spiritual life at an advanced age regret that they didn't give their children a Christian upbringing when they were young. If they have true repentance and beseech God to help their children, God will do something for them. He will throw them a lifesaver to help them escape the storm they're in. Even if there are no people who will appear in order to help or guide them, it may be that something they will see will contribute to turning their lives around and out of the storm. Keep in mind that those parents had good intentions, but they weren't helped by their family when they were young, and so they're entitled to divine help. Yet some children live a spiritual life but encounter many difficulties caused by their indifferent parents. Just as he does for orphans, God shows more care for these children than he does for those whose parents live a spiritual life. Children are influenced by their surroundings. Yet at what age do children receive influences by their surroundings? Children imitate their parents even from the cradle. They pick up everything they see the adults doing and record it on their empty cassette tape. This is why parents should struggle to cut away their passions. It doesn't matter if some of these passions were inherited by them from their own parents. They will still have to give an account for God, not only for not struggling to rid themselves of them, but also for being responsible and transmitting them to their children. Yet why is it that some children with the same upbringing at home turn out to be very different? Often a child will be influenced by the external environment, but when that child grows up, if he has a good disposition, God will give him greater enlightenment to understand the negative influence he has received, and then he will struggle to cast them off. Nowadays, there is a pervasive evil in the world. People try to destroy children from a young age. Instead of preventing, putting the brakes on them from experiencing what is evil until they are of age, people actually prevent them from experiencing what is good as well. Later, the poor things, when they fall into sin and are tormented, want to stand up on their own 2 feet, but they don't know how to. You see, once they go downhill, it's difficult for them to stop. Going downhill is sweet. Young persons in their mid-20s come to the Llfe and tell me they're taking drugs and ask for help in overcoming the addiction. It happened once that I helped a couple of them to turn their lives around, and now they bring their friend and the friend of their friend to be helped. They break your heart. One such young man was into very heavy drugs and was on the brink of death. His arms, his teeth were a mess. He managed to break the habit later and went on to help other young people. There were about 15 young men in his company, and each one who came to see me would say, "I'm with so-and-so." They considered him their elder, but so many have come so very close to death, using needles, selling their blood. They destroy themselves and they destroy their parents, and so you see the father dying from a stroke, the mother from a heart attack, liver disorder. Love between siblings. Parents must cultivate love for one another between the children, in this way preparing the groundwork so that when they wish to strengthen and support a weaker child, they will have the approval of the stronger sibling. In other words, they should help the stronger child understand that the other child indeed requires special attention. Justice is given from God, and it must be rendered equally to both the older and the younger, to the older with respect, to the younger with love, without harm or partiality. This is also mentioned in the book of Deuteronomy, footnote, Deuteronomy 1:17, end footnote. If, for example, the older is at fault, we will justify the younger without offending the older child in front of the younger one. But we will discuss the matter privately with him so that he will come to understand his fault. Yet how should one handle envy, which often appears in older children toward the younger ones? Envy is a passion, but when a child is only 3 years old and the mother is breastfeeding his newborn sibling, it is somewhat understandable that he is envious, since it was only a short while ago that he too was being nursed. Now he sees his little brother in his mother's arms and thinks to himself, just a little while ago, my mother kept me in her arms, but now she's pushing me aside. It's of great help if there's a grandmother around. But when the child becomes 4 years old, the envy should diminish. And when he is 6, the mother can tell him, "You've become a big boy now. What kind of mother would hold such a big boy in her arms?" If the mother helps the child face this problem in this way, then he'll only run to his mother when there's a reason. It isn't healthy to have a child constantly holding onto his mother's skirt. Friends greatly influence children. Yolanda, why is it that a young person who lived spiritually and had philotimo as a child comes to the point of going completely astray? Let's not be judgmental. There are many contributing factors. The children who live a worldly life carelessly are censured by their conscience when they see other children who live purely, spiritually, and they want to lead them astray. Once there were 2 children walking on the street. At some point, one of them stumbled and fell into a ditch of muddy water, and his clothes got wet and muddy. And as they went a little further, he pushed his friend into another ditch to get him wet and muddy, because he felt bad being dirty while his friend was clean. Friends greatly influence children. When I was young, love was in my nature. I would start going somewhere with the animals, and I would want to put this one and that one on the donkey and to carry my little brother on my shoulder. Once one of my brothers killed a bird, and I was very sad and scolded him. Then I took the bird and buried it with tears. At that time, I was keeping company with children of my age. We would go into the woods, we would pray, we read the lives of the saints, and we fasted. Later, the mothers did not allow their children to keep company with me. "Don't keep company with him, he will infect you." So they abandoned me, and I felt lonely. They even made fun of me, saying, "There goes the monk, here comes the monk." They made my life a torment. It got to the point that I could no longer bear the taunts and the ridicule. Then I thought to myself, I will go with the older children and act like them. I started keeping company with older boys. I made a slingshot like them. At first, I took aim with the slingshot alone. Then I used pellets and became the best shot. But later, when I killed a bird and saw it lying dead, I came to my senses again and recovered. I threw away the slingshot and the pellets and said to myself, "You cried when you saw your brother kill a bird, and you scolded him for killing it, and now look at what you're doing. You're killing birds, and eventually you'll be killing animals." Indeed, if I had continued, I would have started hunting animals and learning to skin them too. What starts out as sensitivity can turn into serious evil if one is not careful and allows himself to be influenced by bad company. On the other hand, good company can be very helpful. God has filled people with various gifts. Just as a person can see perversion in others, he can see their virtue as well and imitate it. Help for children who have strayed. It is essential to have an atmosphere of love and peace at home. If children receive a little love at home, even if they stray for a while, they will see that they can't find love anywhere else, only hypocrisy, and they will return home. However, if they can only remember ugly scenes at home, arguments and enmity, how can they find the heart to go back? Yolanda, what should the parents do when a child leaves home? They should try to keep in touch with the child so that when he comes to his senses, he will be able to return home. They should speak kindly to their child, raise his awareness in order to help him. Let's say a child comes home late at night. His mother should approach him and say, "Look here, my child, if you were in my place and your children stayed out late at night, wouldn't you be very worried?" Even the most serious fall of the children shouldn't make parents desperate, for sin has become fashionable in our time. They should always keep in mind the following. Nowadays, young people will be granted certain extenuating circumstances and will be judged with leniency for their transgressions. Today, a grade of 7 for conduct is the equivalent to the 10 excellent of our school days. Of course, parents will always try to help their children, but they mustn't be overly anxious. Children will get more sensible and experienced with time. Right now, they may not understand what is good because their mind has not yet matured. Their mind is cloudy and it lacks the clarity to discern the danger that lies ahead and the irreparable damage they can suffer. It would be very good if the parents indicated to the child that they do get upset over unacceptable behavior, but they mustn't become overbearing, and of course, they should continue to pray. Prayers spoken with pain are effective. If the child does something very serious, the parents must intervene appropriately. If it isn't so serious, then they can overlook it a little, so as not to provoke the child and make the situation worse by causing the child to distance himself from them. They must pray to Christ and Panagia to protect their child. The prayer of the parents, and particularly of a mother, because it is from the heart and has pain, is readily heard. When I was at the Skete of Everon, a young man came by chance and found me. He was wandering in Llfe, found some group of pilgrims coming to the holy mountain and came with them to the Celion. My goodness, he was an atheist, blasphemous, most impudent. He had a devilish cleverness and believed in nothing. He swore at all of the other pilgrims, young and old. With patience and a little effort, I brought him to some reckoning. I gave him a haircut too, because he had very long hair. Look, I told him, may your mother be well, for it was certainly her prayers that brought you here. You are right, Father, he told me. I was wandering in Llfe, and I don't even know how I got here. If your mother finds out that you have come here to the holy mountain and sees you with your hair cut, she will feel such joy for you. How did you know that, Father? My mother will truly be overjoyed to see me so changed, he responded. God turned him this way and that way and guided him to the Master. How much prayer his mother must have poured out for him. Parents must be very careful not to reprimand their children in the evening, because at that time, when the children have nothing to distract them from their troubles, the darkness of the night will make their troubles darker still. They start thinking of ways to react. They search for different solutions. Then the devil gets involved, and the children can even reach a state of hopelessness. If children are reprimanded during the day, they can go out, their troubled darkness disperses, and they eventually forget the trouble. Yeronda, does a beating help to correct children? As much as they can, parents should refrain from beating their children. Through kindness and patience, they should try to help the children understand that what they're doing is wrong. Only when children are very young and don't understand that what they're trying to do is dangerous, then it may help to give a little slap that will make them avoid whatever it is they're doing the next time. The fear of getting another slap serves as a brake for protection. When I was little, my mother was more helpful to me than my father. Both of them loved me and wanted only what was good for me. Each one helped me in their own way. My father was strict. Whenever we, as small children, did something bad, he slapped us. I could feel the sting of the slap and would restrain myself for a while, but when the pain passed, I would forget both the pain and my father's advice. It wasn't that he didn't love me. He gave me those slaps out of love. I remember one time when my father gave me a slap, I was 3 years old, that sent me flying. What had happened? There was an abandoned house next to ours. The owners had moved to America, and the house had just fallen apart. In the yard, there was a fig tree whose branches reached out to the street. It was summertime, and the tree was full of figs. As I was playing with the other children, a neighbor came and lifted me up to pick some figs for him because he couldn't reach them on his own. I cut 5 or 6 figs for him, and he gave me a couple too. When my father learned of this, he became very angry. He gave me a slap. I started crying. My mother, who was present, turned and told him, "Why are you slapping the child? What did he know? He's only a child. How can you stand it, hearing him cry?" But my father explained his reasoning. If he had cried when the man lifted him to pick the figs, he wouldn't be crying now. But it seems that he too wanted to eat some figs, so let him cry now. I didn't dare to do it again. My mother also noted my mischief, but she had a certain noble spirit about her. When I did something naughty, she would turn her face away and pretend not to see me, so as not to make me sad by having to scold or reprimand me. But this behaviour of hers would break my heart. It made me think, look, I did this mischief, and my mother not only does not punish me, but she also pretends not to even see me. I'll never do this again. How can I upset her like that? With her stance, my mother was able to help me even more than if she had slapped me. But then again, I didn't take advantage of the situation by thinking, oh, well, she's not seeing me now, I can do another more mischievous thing. Whereas with my father, the moment I did something wrong, I got slapped right then and there. You see, they both loved me, but it was my mother's noble stance that corrected me the most. Yeronda, some children are very naughty. They shout, they run, they break things. How can a parent refrain from spanking them? Look, again, it's not the child's fault. In order to grow normally, children need a yard to run, to play. Nowadays, the poor things are closed inside apartment buildings and are under a great deal of pressure and stress. They can't run about. They aren't free to play, to enjoy themselves. Parents shouldn't worry when a child is lively and energetic. A lively child has a lot of energy inside and can make great progress in life if this energy is channeled properly. Pressure does not help the children. Some parents are just too overbearing and apply a lot of pressure upon their children, particularly in front of others. It is as though they're dealing with a mule and trying to force it to move ahead by using a switch. They hold the reins tightly and then they tell them, walk freely. Then the children come to the point of beating their own parents. Just today a mother came here with her son, a tall young man, who was sick. What can I do, Father? Our boy doesn't eat and he doesn't even want to see us, she told me. I told her what to do, and then she asked again, what shall I do now? Perhaps, Yeronda, she did not understand what you told her. Of course she understood. I told her, I can't bear to sit an hour with you. How do you expect the boy to be with you all the time? You have driven him crazy. No, I love him, she said. How can you love him if he cannot relax being near you? He wants to leave the house because he wants to be in another environment. When he's away from you, he's fine. For him not to want to be with you must mean that you, too, are at fault for his situation. Don't provoke him. You're emotionally abusing the boy by treating him the way you do. Treat him kindly, with patience. Having said all that to her, she asked me again, what should I do? The boy does not want us. How can you communicate with a person like that? To have a boy that is perfectly fine and they make him out to be stupid. This is detrimental. Parents cannot help their children by force. They suffocate them. When they're constantly hovering over them, no, not this, no, not that, do this, but do it this way, they're not helping the children. They should pull on the reins gently enough so that they won't break. They can keep watch over the children to keep them in line, but without creating a distance between them. They should do what a good gardener does when he plants a small tree. He ties it gently to a strong stake to keep it from growing crooked and from being harmed when the wind blows a little to the right, a little to the left. He waters it regularly, taking care of it so that its branches grow. He may also surround it with a fence so the goats won't eat it, for if the goats eat its branches and truncate it, the tree will be destroyed. A truncated tree cannot bear fruit. It can't provide any shade. Once the branches grow big and strong, then the gardener removes the fence and the tree can bear fruit and comfort goats, sheep, and people with its shade. Oftentimes, over-concerned parents want to tie their children with wire. However, they should tie them gently in place without hurting them. They should try to help their children in a noble way, which will cultivate in them a sense of philotimo, and help them view the good as a necessity. They must explain what is good in a good way, with love and pain. I remember a mother whose eyes would fill with tears when she saw the children doing something wrong, and she would say with pain in her voice, "No, my sweet child." Through her good example, she taught them to struggle with joy, to avoid the temptations of life, to not be easily swayed by troubles, but to face them with prayer and trust in God. Nowadays, young and old alike live as if they were in a nut house, which is why great patience and much prayer are so necessary. Instead, some parents drive their children crazy. Like a clock that is a little damaged or faulty, the parents overwind it a little and the springs break. Discernment is essential in such matters. One child needs more winding, while another needs less. The poor children are exposed to all of the currents. They hear all sorts of messages outside. Don't respect your parents, don't listen to the authorities, don't respect anything. Then when the mothers try to tighten the reins, they rebel even more. This is why I advise mothers not to pressure their children, but to pressure themselves, instead to pray more fervently. If they're always saying no to their children for the most unimportant things, or even unfairly, then when something serious is happening, for example, that the child is about to pour gasoline on a fire, the child may not listen to the warning and suffer great harm. A child does not understand that the parent's love is hidden in the no. And even when a child matures a little, it is then that egoism enters the picture, causing the child to rebel against them when they censure him. Their reasoning goes something like this: am I still a little child for my parents to treat me like this? The parents must help the children understand that just as when they were little and they had to be careful not to burn themselves, now that they are older, they need to understand that there are other fires that can burn them. This is why they must be cautious not to give rights to the evil one, in order to preserve the grace of holy baptism. The indiscreet and excessive love of parents. Yaronda, can a mother out of excessive love harm her child? Of course she can. When, for example, a mother who sees her little child falling down while trying to walk thinks, "Oh, the poor child can't walk," then she holds the child constantly in her arms. If she doesn't hold the child by the hand a little, how will that child ever learn to walk? It is done out of love, but this excessive protection is harmful to the child. I met a father whose son had completed his military duty and who still accompanied him to the barber for his regular haircut. I brought my son for his haircut. How much will it cost, and when should I come back to pick him up? This man had crippled his child. The expression of love needs restraint and discernment. True love is selfless. It does not include ourself and is prudent and discreet. Prudence is especially essential in the abundant love of a mother, so that it is not foolishly wasted. A young man once came to the Llfe who felt exasperated with his parents. They certainly had good intentions, but did not know how to help their son. He was telling me how his parents were pressuring him and did not really love him and so forth. "Look," I told him, "when you were little and your mother bundled you with lots of clothes to go out into the cold, why did she do it? So you would not get cold, or so you would suffocate. Her act indicated great love for you." I went on like this, and when he realized how much his parents really love him, he broke down and cried. His mother really loved him. This love, however, did not help him because of the way she treated him, which caused negative reactions on his part. When needed, the mother must be strict with the child. It does not help when she takes the child's side too readily, just so she won't cause sadness. In Adana, a widow had an only son. John was his name. When he grew up a little, she took him to a cobbler to learn the trade. The boy stayed 1 week with the cobbler and then said to his mother, "Mother, there is no need for me to go to the cobbler anymore. I have learned the trade." "How did you learn so quickly?" she asked. "If you like, I can show you how they make shoes. Here, this is how they cut the sole, the leather, this is how they put on the heel, how they nail it. The master cobbler was very good, and he really wanted to teach John the trade, seeing that he was an orphan and needed support. When a week had passed and John did not show up at the cobbler's shop, he was worried about him and went to his house to ask his mother if the boy was sick. "What happened to John? He has not come back to the shop. Is he sick?" "No, he is not sick. He is very well," she answered. "Then why did he not come back to work?" "Well, why should he go back? John does not need to go back. He has already learned the trade," she said proudly. "But how can you say that he has learned the trade in such a short time?" Then the mother proceeded to indicate to the cobbler how she too had learned how shoes are made. The cobbler laughed, bade her farewell, and returned to his shop. When he returned to the shop, the other apprentices asked about John, and he told them, "John is just fine. Not only has he learned the trade, but his mother has as well." I see this behavior in many parents today. They imagine that they love their children, but with the manner in which they treat them, they destroy them. When a mother, let us assume out of excessive love, kisses her child and says, "There is no other child in the world like my child," then she is cultivating pride and a sick sense of self-confidence. After that, the child will not be obedient to the parents because he presumes he knows everything. The parents must also help the children from a young age to learn to assume responsibility for themselves. They should be given opportunities in the family to do small chores suitable for their age and not to want to have everything ready-made for them. Otherwise, they will encounter difficulties when they grow up. A master tradesman worked hard all his life to raise his children. They spent their days in idleness, wandering about the town. Even when they got married, they still expected things to be done by their father. When the father finally said that it was time for them to look after their own homes and families, they retorted, "That's just great, Father. How is it you never left us uncared for when we were little children, and now that we've grown and have obligations, you're leaving us?"